Hey guys, welcome to today's video. We're going to be discussing the Browns versus Steelers game in today's video. Before we start though, please drop a quick like and a sub on today's video. That would really help my channel grow. I'd really appreciate that. With that said, let's dive right into it, and I hope you enjoy. So big win for the Steelers. They moved to 8-7-1 on the season. Beating the Cleveland Browns in this game that was, a lot of things. Number one, TJ Watt absolutely owning it. Ben Roethlisberger's potential last game at Heinz Field, probably his last regular season game at Heinz Field. And the Steelers, with the win, stay in the playoff hunt. They stay alive in the playoff race, trying to get into the playoffs here. Obviously, they moved to 8-7-1. If they go to 9-7-1, then they, with the win next week, if they move to 9-7-1, then they have a shot at one of those playoff spots. But this game came down to the defense. It really did. The Steelers defense was fantastic. Ben Roethlisberger, if you look at the stats, they're ugly. They're incredibly ugly. Threw for a touchdown, threw barely over 100 yards. Lot of throws. But this game came down to Najee Harris running the ball and the ability for this defense to take over football games. It was really that simple. I mean, Najee Harris over 140 yards on the ground, 25 plus carries. I mean, this guy was getting fed time and time again. And, the Steelers just owned the time of possession. They had the ball for a lot longer. Them throwing the ball was kind of reminding me of what we saw from them last year. A lot of short passing game stuff, not really moving the ball downfield because the O line it's just as bad as it was last year. It's been terrible all year. But Ben Roethlisberger has to get the ball out so quickly. Plus, with minimal power in his arm, it's really hard to get the ball downfield. It was pretty much the short passing game, and Najee Harris pounding the rock like he's been pounding the rock all year. Really big game from him, rushing for a ton of yards. And then, Diontae Johnson had a nice game too. 8 catches, 30-plus yards, and a touchdown. Once again, not a ton of yards. It's more just completions, picking up third downs. But more importantly, this defense is really what gave the Steelers the win here. TJ Watt with 4 sacks, 5 tackles. I mean, this guy was an absolute menace. He's only a sack away from the all-time single-season sack record. So, fantastic game for him. And then, you look at Alex Highsmith, who also had 2 sacks. There was just so much pressure on Baker Mayfield. Cam Hayward also had a sack. There was a lot of pressure the entire game. But, you just look at the stat. You look at the stats. I mean, it was just an ugly game from both sides. And if you move to the Browns here, I mean, Baker Mayfield just didn't do enough, and it's kind of this storyline where it's like, how much do you trust Baker Mayfield now moving into the offseason? Browns eliminated from playoff contention. He threw a lot of interceptions this year, was not accurate with the football, and this was a team that was supposed to make the playoffs coming into the year. Sure, very competitive AFC North division, but big loss against the Steelers here. I mean, they couldn't really even get the ground game going. I mean, Nick Chubb barely had 60 yards. It just was not a good effort. I thought the defense did as well as they could against a Steelers offense that really hasn't done much all year. They're bottom half of the league, really in most categories on the offense side of the football. But I mean, the Browns defense was fine. But this was a game where the offense had opportunities and they just couldn't push the ball downfield. They couldn't build drives, and it really comes into question, how much do they trust Baker Mayfield heading into next season? But with that said, big win for the Steelers, keep the playoff hopes alive. Obviously, they have a very interesting matchup next week playing the Baltimore Ravens, who have been eliminated from playoff contention. So if the Steelers can win that one, and then they have an opportunity, they have a chance, because once again, Chargers and Raiders play each other on Sunday Night Football, and both teams, I believe, sit at 8-7, or maybe no, they sit at 9-7. Excuse me, both teams sit at 9-7. So one of those teams will move to 9-8 if there's a win and a loss. I mean, if it's a tie, then both teams get through. But let's say the Chargers win that game, they would move to 10-7 on the year. If the Steelers went out, they move to 9-7-1, and then the Raiders would be 9-8. So the Steelers would take that 7th seed. So the Steelers have a good shot at getting the playoffs. They just got to take care of business against the Ravens next week. They're in the playoffs in what's really been a crazy year. So at this point, good win for the Steelers, keeping their playoff hopes alive. Guys to watch for next week against the Ravens: TJ Watt, he's on a tear right now. Najee Harris running the football. And how can they contain that Ravens offense that can really be electric at times? So big win for the Steelers. Big win and big game for Ben Roethlisberger, arguably his last regular season game at Heinz Field, and big win for the Steelers team.
And with that said, that's pretty much going to end the video for today. Did you agree with my analysis? Why or why not? Leave your comments and thoughts in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Also, if you're new around here, please drop a like and a sub on today's video. I'd really appreciate that. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, see ya.